Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, February 19th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over what a critical offseason looks like for the Cincinnati Bengals. In this segment, we do a deep dive into one more team in the NFL and what a dream offseason might look like for them in the Atlanta Falcons. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, February 19th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the NFL dream offseason for the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons had a bit of a down year. Not what they expected was going to happen after kind of going all in. They make a big push signing Kirk Cousins to a $180 million deal with $90 million of that guaranteed, and he doesn't even finish off the season as the starter. That goes to the rookie first rounder that they picked in the top 10 in Michael Penix Jr. And Michael Penix Jr. looked really solid. He wasn't able to win most of the games that he was in, but he did keep them close in games where the defense really did fail them down the stretch. In 2024, they went 8-9. They missed the playoffs, finished second in the NFC South behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who they were able to beat twice, but just fell off down the stretch. Now, they're in a very interesting cap space in 2025. They have negative $8 million as it stands right now. So before they can do anything, they need to figure out how to deal with that. And the easiest, most simple way to do that, if you are the Atlanta Falcons, is to deal with the Kirk Cousins contract. Now, obviously, he's the albatross in this room, no matter how you slice it for this offseason, right? You can try and trade him. He does have a no-trade clause, though, and even if you do trade him, it's going to come with a $37.5 million dead cap. That's not going to help your situation. The out for the Falcons is next season. The out for the Falcons for them to get out of this with paying the minimal amount of dead cap, the minimal amount of penalty, is going to be after this year. So I think that Kirk Cousins is actually going to stay on board with the Atlanta Falcons for just this season unless he really asks to be let go. Now, the best way for the Falcons to handle this now is to convert his salary to a signing bonus, kind of like we were talking about with Joe Burrow in the last segment. And if you're able to do that, you can convert his $40 million guaranteed this season to just $22 million of salary, turn the rest into a signing bonus, and that gives the Falcons some cap flexibility. That allows them to re-sign some key free agents, of which they have 30 free agents this season, a bunch of them very important for this team. If they're able to do that, they can go from negative $8 million to just about $12 million on cap. You get in the positives, you are in business. I think that's the best way for them to deal with Kirk Cousins. If they can find a trade partner, it's going to be tough because Kirk Cousins has to agree with that trade partner. You can try and cut him, but if you cut him before June 1st, it's going to be a $65 million dead cap hit. And if you do it after, it's still going to be a $40 million dead cap hit and then a $25 million dead cap hit in 2026. So again, the best way to deal with it, it's not a trade, it's not a cut. It's just a restructure of his contract and having him around as a backup quarterback for this season. But when we get into the free agents, the potential free agents for them, like I said, they have 30 pending free agents. There's a bunch of them that meant a lot to them this season. Lorenzo Carter and Matthew Judon, their top two pass rushes, they're both free agents. Starting center since 2021, Drew Dahlman, is also in there. He missed 8 games with an ankle injury last season. You've got a lot of your safeties, Richie Grant, Justin Simmons, these guys, a bunch of corners, Mike Hughes, and D. Alford. Both of them were the cornerback 2 and 3 behind A.J. Terrell. You've got some guys that made some key plays throughout the season: Kaderil Hodge, Eddie Goldman, and Nate Landman, to name a couple. Nate Landman and D. Alford are both restricted free agents, but there's a bunch of guys that I feel like the Falcons need to get back. The most important position for them to address has been, for the last 10 years, the edge rusher position. They have not been able to get pressure on the quarterback at all since 2016, really. And even before that, outside of that one season, they've really, really struggled with getting pressure on the quarterback. So some of the guys that I think they need to prioritize re-signing are guys like either Matthew Judon or Lorenzo Carter. I'm more partial to Matthew Judon. He had a bit of a down season last year, only 5.5 sacks, but he is a guy that if you can get him going, get him next to a really good pass rusher, maybe just stack that defensive line with anybody and everybody, he could do a lot better than he did this season. He was getting double teamed a lot this year, and Matthew Judon is a little bit smaller than your typical pass rusher, so he could go out there and he could be a lot better this season if you re-sign him. You also need to re-sign D. Alford. D. Alford is massive for them. They don't have a lot of cornerback depth behind A.J. Terrell. D. Alford, Mike Hughes, both of them free agents. I would go for D. Alford first, then Mike Hughes, but you need to re-sign at least one of those two. And the last one that I think needs to be re-signed, if you are the Atlanta Falcons, is your starting center in Drew Dalman. Drew Dalman has been one of the best centers in the NFL for a very long time. If you go over, he's at the top of just about every single metrics, penalties, or lack of penalties being called against him. The run blocking is really good on that offensive line, and keeping a guy like Drew Dalman is going to do wonders for this team. He's someone that I think they absolutely need to keep. One of the two safeties, either Richie Grant or Justin Simmons, could be really interesting to keep as well. Justin Simmons didn't have his best season last year, but he's a guy that was an all-pro before, has been a thorn in the side for the best quarterback in the NFL in Patrick Mahomes. And Richie Grant, he took a back seat to Justin Simmons last season, but he had started a bunch in years past. So that's someone to take a look at as well. Overall, Drew Dalman, one of either Lorenzo Carter or Matthew Judon, one of either D. Alford or Mike Hughes, and one of either Richie Grant or Justin Simmons should be re-signed by this Falcons team. When you go and look at the free agency, they're not going to have a lot of options. Again, if you go and restructure that Kirk Cousins contract, they're still not going to have too many guys left out there for them to go and get. So I'm looking at a veteran, someone that's going to be able to show up on a 1 year, 2 year kind of prove it or just end your career kind of deal. Top edge rushers in this class, Khalil Mack and Hassan Reddick, I think would be really good down there. Hassan Reddick has been one of the better pass rushers when he plays over the past 5 seasons, and Khalil Mack continues to still be a really elite player all the way through his old age, I guess you should say, in the NFL. Khalil Mack is going to keep playing, whether that's with the Chargers or not. That's up to be decided. But Hassan Reddick, I think, is a guy that they absolutely should target. In the draft, they were at pick number 15. It's not the best spot. There aren't going to be a lot of the guys that you want them to take at the top of the draft. But again, they need edge rushers. They need edge rushers. Mike Green out of Marshall is someone that I mocked to them. He had 17 sacks this season. Shamar Stewart is a guy out of Texas A&M that can be huge up the middle for them. And if for some reason James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee falls to them, you have to take him there. James Pierce Jr. is one of my favorite edge rushers in this class. I don't think he will, but if he's still there at 15, the Falcons need to take him immediately. The other one that I'm looking at, if they end up not re-signing Justin Simmons or Richie Grant, is Malachi Starks. Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia, is a guy that I think is going to be a Kyle Hamilton kind of player. Someone that can play up in the box, can guard receivers, but really be that do-everything kind of guy that defenses really love to use that safety position for. Malachi Starks out of Georgia is one of my favorite players in the draft. He's my second favorite secondary player. I might even take him as far as my favorite players ahead of Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan. I still think maybe not draft him ahead of him, but Malachi Starks is a guy that I really do like on the defensive side of the ball. And if you're looking for a do-it-all kind of safety, someone that can come in and do amazing things for your team, Malachi Starks is that guy. But if I'm the Falcons, first step is figure out the Kirk Cousins contract. Restructure it. Get that money in the cap. That way you can do things this offseason. If not, you're just going to be stuck and you're going to have to go with what you have. And what you have wasn't good enough this season on defense. And I don't think you're going to be able to hit on it if you don't restructure Kirk Cousins. But let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear it. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to baseball. We continue our ride around the MLB. As the season right around the corner, we turn our attention to the AL. The AL West division is for the rest of the week and the upcoming week as well. We start off with the Texas Rangers. We'll be right back with that here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.